Well, we are creative, aren't we? But you see, here's this from the Russian standpoint. Older, younger brother. I love it. For the 4 years of the Medvedev presidency, we were always looking to find light between the two. There's no light. Yeah, okay, Putin used the word crusade. You know, Russians kind of like, he gets a little rough. He gets a little rough. Putin's a little tough. He uses, actually, he occasionally uses a foul word once in a while. He's had a few, shall we say, very colorful things to say about how we handle terrorists. Like we won't get into that. Like yeah, they like that. Russians like that. He's a man. You know, it's kind of, he's a man. He's a man. Yeah, tough. Medvedev, not so much. You know, refined. Younger brother, 12-year age difference. This is the thing. So who is he? So he's prime minister now, head of United Russia. He's getting some criticism right now. You may be hearing some of the criticism. I don't think he's going as prime minister. Okay, I'm going to go on. I'll record this, and then somebody will let me know I'm wrong when it maybe it doesn't happen. I say he stays as prime minister until after the Sochi Olympics. I don't think he's going to get replaced. You're hearing this stuff now. There's some problems going on. People are mad at the government. They blame the government, not Putin. This is like the old Tsar. We don't blame the Tsar. We don't like the government. Like. We don't blame Stalin, we blame the state. There's a long tradition of this. They called the Tsar the little father. The little father. This is a long tradition. The great leader is above this. So we don't blame Putin. Blame the government. He's the head of the government. He'll hold on. But maybe after Sochi, he'll move into another position. All right, you remember this thing. Because our senior senator did tell us we're all Georgians. He did send his wife Cindy over to Tbilisi to rally with the Georgians. Well, this was a gift on a platter to Putin, to Medvedev in particular. He'd just become president. And we get in a war, and you know what happens when you get into a war? You rally around your leader. His approval rating went up to 90%. It was a gift. Let me tell you what this says. This is, of course, Saakashvili, the head of the Georgians. In Russian says, today's schedule, 3 a.m. attack. 6 a.m. blitzkrieg, 7 breakfast, noon victory, 5 p.m. request for help. And we didn't come. We weren't coming. Remember that McCain's, one of his top foreign policy advisors, had also worked with the Georgian government. The expectation was McCain was very supportive of Saakashvili. Bush administration, nothing. We did nothing. I think they expected a lot more from us, the Georgians. But the bottom line is this, and this is a long, tortured, complicated history we won't get into, but I'm happy to in the Q&A. Bottom line is this, no one denies who fired the cannon shots. It was the Georgians. And once you kill the soldiers or peacekeepers, whatever you want to call those Russians, once you kill them, something's going to have to happen. So this was a gift to them. So his approval rating went way up. You know what happened. The Russians went in the kind of the Israeli style, we're going to punish you for what you've done so you don't try it again. And they went in, it was brutal. And then once they were done completely decimating the Georgian military capability, they withdrew. So he came in that way, but then unfortunately for him, it was a downward slide afterwards. So by the time we get to a year before the election, his popularity is waning. It's lower than Putin's. Now, I wanted to put this up. You have this, I think, on your handout. We have this image of a Stalinist-like monolithic system, like all the leaders are the same. The truth is there are a lot of different kinds of elements. Putin stands atop a very complicated array of forces. So this is just simply to indicate this to you. So what I want you to know is this. Yes, you know about KGB, the intelligence officers. This is the Russian term for this, siloviki. The sila are the forces, the powers. It refers to intelligence security officers. And they are a significant element in the Putin team. So are the St. Petersburg lawyers and economists. These are the people that were inspired by Milton Friedman and the Chicago School economically. Medvedev is in there. Where the heck is there? He is. He's one of the lawyers. He's inspired by Western law, you know, creating that. Legal nihilism would be one of his big initiatives when he was president. Then we have the business element, the political business element from St. Petersburg. And then we have the longtime specialists, like their current foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov. He's a professional. This is the kind of, and then we have others. All I want you to know is this. Don't worry about the names and stuff. I just want you to know this is complicated. This is complicated. There's only one person that can handle this. There he is. He's the only one. And they know this. If you want to know why Russians wanted him back, or why they liked him being prime minister, their feeling was this: nobody can handle this Kremlin team. Incidentally, the guy that was the big rival to Medvedev is over here. There's his name, Sergei Ivanov. Was it going to be Ivanov to be the president back in '08? Or was it going to be Medvedev? We got Medvedev. And when the government emerged, he stayed in the government in a top position. And he's now a very senior person now, as is Medvedev. So what I want you to know, this is a complicated constellation. There's one person that can hold it together. You see, at the point that Putin leaves, this is going to come apart. That's where they're going. If you ask me, where is the momentum for political change in terms of parties, it's not with the liberal Democrats who are fascists. It's not the communists. This is where it's going to. This is going to implode. This is a gigantic constellation, and it will come apart at some point. And I want to look at it because the preferences of people like Medvedev are very different than like Ivanov over here. So that's all I want you to take from this. And it's hard to get a handle on this. The time is, what time is it?
Maybe...
What's our time?
Well, it's now 10:20.
Holy cow! And okay, can I...
You're going to be at the radio studio.
I know, and I would
take.
Can I just... pardon me. Let me just... I've got a couple of slides here. I'm going to zip through some.
We always allow all speakers to put all their slides.
Well, I'm gonna, but I don't even know where I am in the progression. I knew. All right, okay, can you just give me 5 minutes? Let me just hit a couple things, and I'll just take questions. Let me see. Okay, these are the priority projects I mentioned. I won't get into the details. You get the drift. And that was this is fascinating. I want you to real quick. The stabilization fund. This is really important. Look, they're making, when the energy prices are up, money's rolling in. What they wanted was a rainy day fund. If you want to know why Russians like Putin, now let's take this thing. They put away lots of money back in the period 2004, 5, 6, 7, so that at one point it reached being worth something like, where is it, 190 billion. Now this was their rainy day fund. If you want to know how they got through the period of the meltdown, economists was claiming they were going to have more trouble than we. They had less trouble. That was that. Now this is what the Russians like. Now if you want to know where the Russians get frustrated with Putin, here's something that wasn't popular. Because I'm not laying out there, everybody likes Putin and everything. They were annoyed when he put this stabilization fund together, and Medvedev oversaw this. The money was not invested in Russia because they were worried about their currency, their banks, corruption. They're not stupid. Putin has admitted it's his biggest failing, corruption. He's always admitted that. It is his biggest failing. They put it in US dollars, 45%, 45% in euros, 10% pounds. Now this ticked off Russians. What is the statement about our currency? What is the statement about our banking? You're putting it there. Oh, he was smart. This is a rainy day fund. It was there. Pensions continued to be paid. These priority projects continued. That's how they got through a period when they didn't have anywhere near the problems we did. Now, why don't we know this? Remember this. Remember the stabilization fund. If you want to know why Russians like Putin, this is policy. This is policy. Well, I'm getting people worked up in another room. Okay, I'm worked up. Okay, they're confident. The nationalists back, but they also get carried away. I just wanted to see the pictures. We got hammers and sickles. We got crosses. It's all over. Here's a bunch of Santa Clauses down here. The nationalism is very strong. Religion never has the Jewish community flourished like now. This is one of the untold wonderful stories. People that were Jewish that left so many times, they're going back. Is there anti-Semitism? Of course there is. There is in our country. Why don't we, let's be aware of this. Russia has a very good relationship with Israel, incidentally. Very good, maybe the best in history. Okay, I'm going to skip through. Okay, I'm going to get through it. Okay, we've talked about the critics. There they are. There's Gary Kasparov, the chess champion, probably on the way to getting arrested. Here we go. Criticizing Putin. Let me tell you, this was a little birthday present for Putin. It is a coloring book. It's called Vova and Dima. Vova is a short form for Vladimir, like Billy for William, Billy. Dima for Dmitry. So this is a coloring book. So I'm going to tell you, I will show you a page. Let me show you this page. Here they're playing badminton. If you want to know why Russians prefer Putin as president to Medvedev, remember this. Putin promotes martial arts. The national sport that Medvedev promotes is badminton. Okay. So here's what it says. Here they are playing badminton. After work, Dima and Vova love to play badminton. It's a coloring book. I desperately wanted one of these. I said, my graduate students in Russia, please find me one. It was sold out. There were like 12,000 copies sold out. Here's another one. Often, Vova and Dima like to go for a walk with their favorite pets. There they are out there with their pets. Okay, no, that's the badminton. Okay, we did that. This is not Brezhnev's USSR. Now, I want to show you something else. This was online at the sort of Gentleman's Quarterly of Russia. A poster. That's the head of United Russia. He's telling someone something. This was popular. One of my Russian friends sent this to me, just to give you a sense that there is definitely criticism. No, stay at home. We'll fill out the ballot. No, Russians knew what was... This was online. This was online. Okay. Okay, let me see. I'm going to cut through this. I'm sorry, because I want to get some questions. So this was just all of our criticism. I can deal with all these. If you want to talk about, I'll just mention these, and if you want to go with it. Regional, he appoints regional governors. What was that about? The media, opposition parties. How about Khodorkovsky, the Wall Street Journal champions him, the Yukos CEO who's in jail? We can talk about that. Other regime opponents who've died. Well, you know, Berezovsky just died. I think it's pretty clear he committed suicide. Okay, Russian genocide in Chechnya. These are points of criticism. The bullying of Ukraine and Belarus on energy. We can talk about that. Okay, now what are the Russian complaints? Corruption, corruption, corruption. This is what do Russians care about? They want price and state financial supports. Right now, inflation issues, and they're getting ticked at the government now. This is where, and Putin came out and said, we've got to keep funding those social network programs. He's critical of his government, that he wants that funding. Infrastructure. Continue up, boy, we're struggling with that ourselves. They're worried about that. They want to have those internet lines. They want that stuff. The quality of materials, education, healthcare. Continuing economic growth. This is what the Russians are concerned about. No one's talking about how elections are being conducted. Frankly, they're not worried about it. I said this. Their personal freedom. They can't have it all. Okay, in the world, what I would say is this. Assertively pragmatic, committed to economic modernization. It's my last point. Engage with us. And I gave you the pictures of the leaders. Ivan the Terrible, Peter the Great, Catherine the Great, Alexander II, Stalin. Then, of course, we've discussed Gorbachev, Yeltsin, and then there's the big boy now. Okay, my suggestions. I'm almost done. Be careful in viewing everything through the prism of immediate democracy building. This is a Western perspective. You have every right to this perspective, okay? But realize this is not the Russian view. Here's the Russian view. View it through the prism of state consolidation and institution building. Do you have a state that is functioning? Do you have a state that is providing the public policies that you want? This is what the Russians are concerned about. Now, that doesn't mean they don't care about the former. It doesn't mean you and I as Americans don't care about the latter. But what I'm saying is we're more concerned about the quality of the election than we are the quality of public policy. Thus, when Bush said to Putin, I hope someday you can build a democracy like we're building in Iraq, Putin's response was, I don't think so. And what the Russians will say back to you is, look what you've built in Iraq. Maybe it is the case that the ballots are secret and there's choice, but look at the policies that are being produced, or maybe better to say, the policies that are not. That's their view. They're on the move. I'm upbeat about Russia. I'm upbeat about Russia. They have problems, and I'm happy to explore them with you, like corruption. It's complex. I want you to finally take in my last pictures. This is Russia. I want an icon. 70% of Russians are believers, but only 5 go to church. Yeah, they are hanging from the light fixtures. Energy is key. They are a military power. They are committed to the national priority projects. This is the man, and they even have beauty pageants, something I never thought I would see when I lived there in the Soviet times. So this is the way I think of Russia, and my judgment is I'm very upbeat about where the country is moving, even granting problems. Thank you for your patience. Let's take that first question. Let me start with you, sir.
You haven't said anything at all about the influence of the New World Order on this development of Russia.
Well, Russia sees themselves, the Russian people, the government see themselves as a natural leader in Eurasia and globally. They would like to integrate in more with NATO. I think the constraint is from our perspective. They are concerned about the great hegemon. Whenever the word you see, hegemon, arises, it means overwhelming power. You know who they're talking about, the United States. Every time, thank you for coming. I know for you who have to go, please. I got, you know, as usual, I went over, but thank you for staying as long as you did. You had a good time on the river cruise. River cruise, people go to Russia. It's the world's navel. It's the world's, although I had somebody from Latin America say to me, you know, I also associate Russia with a body part, but that's not it. And I thought, well, that wasn't nice. In any case, Russia, whenever the Russian and Chinese leaders meet, there is always some communique comment about worries about the hegemon, us. But you know something? Here's the bottom line. When you talk to Chinese, the big relationship with us. It's us. I mean, I think it's the biggest economic relationship. I think it may have passed U.S.-Canada. And so in the end, we matter the way they don't. And the same for the Russians in the end. And incidentally, the Russians have concerns about China. They have a historical concern about Asian peoples for centuries. So I think if what you're getting at is how does Russia look at this? They're a major player. They are coming back. They are the world's #1 energy producer. They are worried about the position of the United States. They would like more of a multilateral situation, a multi-power system, I should say. And so in that regard, you can see them as a challenger of sorts. They are both our partner, but in areas they are a competitor. Am I responsive, or did you have, I mean, it's a big issue what you're raising.
Well, I like everything that you say, okay, except that the New World Order is having such a negative effect on the United States and dragging the United States down. Okay, what about the other countries? Are they affecting the other countries equally as negatively as this country?
Well,
or they're not paying any attention to any of the other countries? You know, I don't see it really going on anywhere else. I'm not seeing it.
Well, you know, Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was President Carter's foreign policy specialist, and you see his daughter Mika on the Morning Joe if you're an early riser. Zbigniew Brzezinski has written that these two wars we've been in, we're out of one sort of, and the other we're getting out of sort of, that these are the last two imperial wars. This is his argument. I mean, we are in a new era. And in that regard, I think there's a lot of merit to his argument. I'm careful about those kind of words. Those are loaded words. But I get what he's saying. In that regard, what I would agree with in your question is we have paid a tremendous price, okay? And I understand you have friends maybe here in your community that are on the other side that will tell you it was well worth paying, and they'll give you the arguments. I would probably be on the other side. I don't think it was worth it. I think it's been terribly costly to us. From the Russian perspective, they are focused much more on other kinds of power. I don't think the old hard power that they were known for, they had a tradition of large standing armies for centuries. This is over now. No serious person.
That was the Cold War.
Yeah, well, and it was centuries. You could go back to Nicholas I, the 19th century. Russia was the gendarme of Central Europe for other countries. That's over. Putin is he's an assertive leader, and he's pragmatic. I think the Russian strategy is, and I understand they're investing in military, but look, we spend something like 9 times what they do, so let's be fair about what's being spent. Yes, their military standing is important to them to an extent, but when you're talking about the projection of Russian power, I would be looking first at energy, which we have not talked much about. I would be talking about the expanding pipeline system west and east. They're the #1 energy producer. In a good month on oil, they outproduce Saudi Arabia, but when you throw in natural gas, they're absolutely #1, and fossil fuels are here for a while. We just put solar finally at our house. I'm so excited to be doing solar, but I get it. It's a long time fossil fuels are there. Interestingly, Russia is investing in alternative energy. They're going to look at this. They see themselves. Putin has said this, Medvedev has said, they want to continue to be an energy leader. At some point, those become more important. So if you want to talk about Russia's projecting power, I'm looking there. Now, real quickly, I head up there on those points, the Belarus-Ukraine situation, and we wonder at some point will Russia be bullies on this. Let me tell you what happened in those cases. Obviously, I can't predict the future. I can't predict that Russia can't be a bully, or wouldn't be. But what happened in those cases is you had 2 governments. One was hostile to Russia. The other is this government in Belarus, which is Stalinist, basically. Very, very grim reality. When you look at the relationship, Russia was very unhappy with the policies being pursued by both of these regimes, and they were at the same time subsidizing their energy. These countries were paying maybe 40–50% of world market price. So the Russians were saying, if you're biting our hand, If you people have now elected an outright anti-Russian leader who wants to join NATO, we're not subsidizing you. So they began to ratchet it up. Then you know the rest. The Ukrainians came in, they're drawing the energy out as that's going through their territory to Germany, and this is where we went. Now it was presented here that the Russians are just typically being Russian and bullies, but their reaction to you or me as Western capitalists is, it's the market. It's the market, and in addition, we're still, as we negotiate up, they're paying under world market prices. So, but now back to today. The bottom line is, this is a great source of power, but they need the customers. They need, and you saw him with Merkel. Look at that. This is a great relationship. Can you believe it? You know what we lived through in World War II. Can you believe it? 28 million Russians were killed. 50% of the country's industrial base was destroyed. Who is their favorite Western country? Germany. This is amazing. We lived it. My students don't get it. You lived through this. This is, I didn't predict the collapse of the Soviet Union. I never saw a unified Germany. I never would have seen a rapprochement between Germany and Russia. It's an important relationship. They're not going to mess with the Germans. They're not going to mess with the Germans. And look, Korea, real quickly, this is why also, they're not fans of North Korea. They're not fans. They have a great relationship with South Korea. It's economic. Of course, that's a Chinese problem. Yeah.
I just think that I would feel uncomfortable if we did not talk about all the journalists who have died.
Yes.
And I can't believe that you don't mention it in your slides.
Well, I'm happy to. And some of the pictures that were there with the anti-Western, anti-Putin demonstrations about that. If we start to look at these cases, let's be honest about it. I don't think these people were taken out by the Putin regime. Many of them are cutting-edge journalists who are hostile to the government. There's no doubt about it. However, what you're generally talking about, my reading, I wasn't avoiding it. It's just, to be honest with you, I don't find it the biggest issue, but let's talk, it is for us, okay.
No, it might not be the biggest issue,
yeah,
but it's an important issue.
Yeah, and I will address it.
The press is an indication of making progress or going backward to a more repressive.
And in that regard it is. The reason I said that, I didn't want you to feel that I'm trying to avoid something because it somehow is uncomfortable for me. I'm completely happy to discuss. Here is my read. When you look at most of these people, these are people that were basically in their journalistic activities involved in either looking at the mafia, looking at Chechnya. They are going into very dangerous areas of reporting that get you into a lot of trouble. If you want to ask me, who do I think was involved, I have no special knowledge, and some of this gets very tricky. Let's go to Litvinenko, who was poisoned in London. My guess is that's tied in with, I guess we're recording this, so I'll be careful not mentioning names, I don't want to get sued. But I would probably tie this in more with mafia, certain people in the West. Certainly, Politkovskaya was writing some very interesting research involving Chechnya, Kadyrov, and other people. You see, I don't see this tied to Putin. Now, we can get into this discussion whether the Kremlin permits this, if they're as powerful as we say they are, how can this happen? But I guess my feeling is, even living in this country, I live in a free country, I feel, as you can see today, I certainly feel comfortable sharing my views, however unorthodox. I would be honest with you, this is not an area I would ever choose professionally to get involved with, organized crime. In investigating it and shedding light on it. And so I have to say, I think if we were to build the list of these people who've been killed, they were in Chechnya, they're down there in the region, or they've been doing interesting investigative reporting either on the black market, the mafia, or these various Caucasus groups. So I don't really tie this to Putin or to the Kremlin. Now, if we want to get into the broader issue of media, I would agree with where you may want to go in that there are constraints, there is a certain controlling of discussion. So when you look at the national television channels, and I get one at home that I watch, it is true that there has been a kind of constraint there. Do I see criticism of the government? Yes. But it's carefully done. There's no doubt about it. However, if we want to talk about Russians, I think something like 70% of Russians, I don't remember the exact statistic, are using the internet. When you look at the internet news, if you look at local news, if you look at regional news, if you look at print media, it's very open. And my understanding too is you don't have the kind of filters on the internet that you have with China. I don't have any trouble in interacting by email with my friends. I say things that are not supporting of the government. So what I would, this is a separate matter than what you brought up, and you're bringing up
No,
an
but
important
it's the
matter.
same
Yeah,
subject.
in this regard, it is true. It is true, there have been, here's what I would say, having lived in the Soviet Union, having seen that news. I would liken the major national television networks a little bit more to Fox News. There is a kind of sanitizing, okay, of the news. I don't particularly watch Fox a lot, given my preferences, but I watch it occasionally. And I know that if I really want hard-hitting news analysis, I'm going to look elsewhere. But on the other hand, I do see coverage. I don't see them fully hiding everything. It's sanitized. So there's a difference between sanitizing and censorship. So in that regard, I think what you find in Russia is that, now what's the context? One last point. This is a very big issue, and it's complicated. The context is what went on in the 1990s, what the Russians now call the time of troubles, and this is a very particular term that referred to the late 16th, early 17th century when Russia was invaded and occupied by the Poles. Boris Godunov, the author, is about this. And they use this for Yeltsin period. It has a meaning. So it's a time of anarchy. They see the 90s as a time of anarchy. It was democratic only in form, but it was going nowhere. It was a mess. And what you saw in the time of anarchy was rich, corrupt influences, like that of the Berezovsky who just committed suicide. These people run amok, stealing the property, etc. Then they built what were called financial industrial groups, FIGs, where they have a bank, they have a business, they have a media outlet, and they were like a William Randolph Hearst, going in, and it was yellow journalism. So the Russians didn't like this. They thought there was all sorts of distortion, people were promoting their agendas, and so when this government came in and they began to rein this in, they were very worried about the impact of, shall we say, Russian versions of William Randolph Hearst, and where this is going to go. We need a responsible media. That's their term. Now you might say, I might say, this is feeling, I'm nervous. I'm nervous now. Who's to judge what's responsible? But I would simply say to you this, look at the context of where they were and what they were accustomed to. And they didn't want that kind of yellow journalism. And so, in the end, when you ask a Russian, are you more likely to believe a Western entrepreneur, Western-style entrepreneur, billionaire, who's successful, or believe the government? They go with the government. You and I, with our history, the opposite. But then I'll say to a Russian about Khodorkovsky, who's in jail. Bring it up. How workers say, well, you Americans are concerned. My friends wanted him to get more than 9 years. They were angry. They thought he should have been put to death. Okay, so I'm not there. For them, you see, he completely corrupted the country and stole those resources. But then they would say to me this. He said, "Look, we're not against billionaires. We know about Bill Gates. We admire Bill Gates. We know what he created. Would you tell us what Khodorkovsky created? We know about Steve Jobs. We get these guys working out of a garage or their house. We don't resent wealth. What this is about is people that got wealth through stealing. So they don't, what my friends would say to me is, this isn't about class warfare or whatever. This is about these people stole things. And then they're controlling the media, and they're going to push an agenda because they want a system that will further bolster them. So this is their view. So I'm not justifying, I'm trying to explain, we have a very different starting point. We have a very different starting point. We are not concerned to have corporations or individuals owning information sources the way they do. Well, some of us are now, but I mean, in our history. They are. They are more in you know what they like? They would like a BBC arrangement. Of course, on the other hand, they don't have the safeguards of the BBC. So you raise an important issue. You're right. Maybe I should highlight that more. I'm not afraid to get right into it. But like I say, with the killing of the journalists, I see no evidence tying this to Putin. I see this as tied into other things that are very unfortunate.
I think, folks, we've run out of time.